Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Holiday Spectacular with the ZX Spectrum. Your good buddy, your good pal, and proud West Virginian, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who's also proud of where he lives. It's the Brent. You don't sound that proud. You can only be so proud.
Proudness goes up and down.
What I like is we both wished everyone a Merry Christmas by clenching our fists in rage, raising them to them.
It was like I was raising a drink too.
Yeah, that's it. Sure it is. You know, every once in a while I'll open the show by saying, "This is two Americans' wacky look at the British Star Wars system, the ZX or ZX Next in today's case."
Yep.
You know, I say that, and sometimes you mock me when I say it, but sometimes it gets over, and sometimes it gets heard. And just when you think, maybe the show is kind of, you're wondering, man, what are we doing here? What are we messing around here? Suddenly, someone delivers to you an olive branch, a lovely gift, a light shines from above, shines down on your little show. And a little light shined down on us this past week when we were alerted that we had been, our little podcast had been mentioned in the UK's Guardian newspaper.
Yes.
The largest online newspaper in the UK, and one that I do frequent for news. Okay, I don't want to say frequent, but I get on there occasionally. They wrote a lovely little blurb about it. So I'm going to read it real quick, Rick, because it's not a very long blurb. And then I want to get your comments on it.
Absolutely.
This is in their podcast picks area, and it's entitled "Our Sinclair, a ZX Spectrum podcast for gamers of a certain vintage." The ZX Spectrum was a rubber-keyed gateway to countless weird and wonderful games. The monthly Our Sinclair podcast recaptures the excitement of that imperial phase of 8-bit home computing as a pair of code-named U.S. enthusiasts, Amigo Aaron and Caps Lock fan The Brent, review an old Spectrum title. At first, the sheer novelty of hearing two drawling dudes from West Virginia grapple with 1980s UK time capsules like Jeff Cape Strongman or Action Biker is a culture clash hoot. But a winning combination of affability and diligent research means their love for the humble Spectrum shines through. So there you go. We thought that was dandy.
That was. My first thought was we fooled another one. But
I want to thank Rachel Rosti and Graham Virtue. What a name, by the way. Graham. I'm Graham Virtue. Again, this was their podcast Pick the Weeks. I think it was last week. I was like, this is the December 5th, it says here, 2024, if you want to look that article up. What's it like, Brent, to have your humble West Virginia podcast featured in such a huge and well thought of bit of newspaper there?
It was very humbling. I honestly, my first thought was, this has to be a spoof, right?
No.
That was my very first thought. But I went, I read it. It was very kind. And the Guardian, of course, is a very treasured newspaper. I mean, back from 1800s into the 1800s, to come from that far back and make the transition into the modern age is astounding for anybody, especially a news organization.
The Chud did it, by the way.
But I was very proud. I was very proud that we were mentioned. And it's not like we submitted our names or that we, said, "Hey, why don't you review our podcast?" It was completely out of the blue and very nice. It made me feel good inside to get those opinions right across on the Guardian.
Yeah, I will say, I was telling Boat this. We've done a lot of shows over the years, me and you and me and Boat. And we sort of know how many people listen to the show. We sort of know where the people are, but you never really know.
Yeah.
And it is nice to get a mention like that, to know that you're somewhere out there, someone's getting a kick out of two hillbillies talking about ZX Spectrum games.
Yeah.
Including Jeff K. Strongman, which Jeff K. just passed away here recently too. So shout out to his family, my condolences. But it was nice. It was a nice little mention, and we appreciate it. And hopefully, we're going to get some new listeners that'll check us out, and we'll see what we're doing here. Because it's funny, our Sinclair always has been a pretty strong show on the network, so it's nice. But it's nice to have someone point us out. So a little bit of news since the last time we came to you with our Sinclair is the fact that in the interim, the ZX Spectrum, the Spectrum has been released. We're not going to get too deep into it because we sort of talked about it a little bit when we did the ST show, ironically, but I want to get into it a little bit. I think this thing, Brent, has been a runaway success. If I'm honest, I've heard it's just been selling in droves. Of course, this was not a mini. It wasn't a mini machine. This is a full size Spectrum, effectively, with the keyboard. Pretty much the exact same sort of style of keyboard, plus 48 built-in games, and the ability to add more games with the SD card. Apparently, it reads practically any sort of file, including the tape files. You can load stuff via the tape files if you want.
It's really a modern day re-release.
And plus it's also got save states and rewind features for games. That is, if you think about something like a Manic Miner, have you a rewind feature? My God,
I don't know though. That'd be so frustrating. I died. Oh, I died. Oh, I died.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I played the Jet Set Willies, the Manic Miners over the years, some of these other games. And just that feature alone would make me, and I've got, thanks to our good buddy Scoob, I've got the Ingo. We've got a couple Spectrums in here. But man, I will say I like that replay feature, and I don't think you can get that unless you're emulating. I don't think there's any other way to get it. So that would be nice to have that, and easy to go save states. But I've heard nothing but good things about this.
Yeah. No, I think it has been successful, and I'm not surprised. The ZX was one of the biggest selling computers for its time especially in the UK. And if I had one, I would certainly have it hooked up and playing it. And that's with the ability to play Spectrum whenever I want on my laptop. There is something to be said about having and I've heard the keyboard is not 100% the same as it was, but I've heard
it's better.
Well, yeah,
it can't be as bad,
right? Well, you're right. But that's what I'm saying is it actually is an improvement. But to have those rubbery keys, that feeling when you're plucking around or playing a game on a keyboard, is something that you can't emulate. The tactile feel of it is not something you can emulate.
Plus, you've got the ability to program on it as they did in the day.
And you'd never want to do that.
No, there are people that really enjoy that sort of thing.
I know.
And so, and you've got all those shortcuts. They've done a good job getting that all laid out. These we're probably on the cusp of the next release from, I think, Retro Games Limited, I believe it's the name of the outfit. And I believe the next one they've got on the dock, it's going to be that full-size Amiga 500, 1200, whatever they end up coming out with. And which will be fine, but I like what they did with the Spectrum. No mini crap, just get right to it.
Well, it was already miniaturized. It is,
but you still could have minified it, which would be stupid.
You could have been dumb,
And so what you've got here is this is a usable machine. That's what I like about it. It's sort of like the C64 Maxi when they released it. Just skip the mini part. Like I've got the 500 mini, the A500 mini, which is fine, but I would much rather just have a full size keyboard and pay the extra couple bucks.
Well, no, you'd be paying an extra ton of bucks because you have to factor in shipping and all that kind of
Well,
crap.
you know, I thought about picking you up the Spectrum, but everything I've ever bought you, you've never even hooked up or turned on. So this year you'll get something that's not electrical, like
Woogie
maybe a
woogie?
light bulb or
Wait,
a hat that's less green.
wait. First of all, a light bulb's not electrical, and
Well,
my hat is currently blue.
well, yeah, but is it
Yeah,
underneath
different
that?
hat.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. It's nice and festive this year, so that's why. Anyway, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of these Spectrums under trees here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and some
for
people were
Christmas.
actually going to be really happy to get it.
I think it's real nice, and it's funny. I don't know where the cutoff is on these classic machines getting made. We sort of speculated on the last show about an Atari ST being made. Man, there's so many of these, and I mentioned how I thought I would love to have and I think they actually sort of exist already. I'd love to have a miniaturized or a remake of the MSX to introduce people to that library because it's so vast. I think that would be great.
I think that'd be really hard.
I don't
think it'd be awesome,
I
but
don't think it'd be any harder than anything else.
just the
I would love to have what would be great? How about this? The mini Coco, except not a mini. The Coco as a machine to play games on. Like, put about 100 games in that bad boy.
No, I think that's doable. I think that's very doable.
Oh yeah,
but we should talk about that next week.
That's true. That's a good lead up. One more thing I want to get into before we get into this week's main event. Is because we're playing this week a game called Bikers.
Yes,
just in time for Christmas. Now I will say, it's funny. There's a serendipity involved in life. You know, life. It's not a simulation, but there's a series of odd occurrences.
Okay.
Me and the boy went out for it's holiday season here in West Virginia.
Sure.
Me and the boy went out to get a couple of hot dogs at the drive-in. All right. And so what's happening out there? Here's out in the middle in Milton, West Virginia. You can look it up. There's a long straightaway to the place we get our lunch. Right in the middle of the road, are bikers and Santa Claus. And they're out there collecting charity money to give to the kids, or some sort of smack habit. I'm not sure which. But theoretically, the kids. And so
I thought they were selling smack to the children.
No. And the bikers and Santa Claus were collecting money. By the way, same day saw the firemen doing it. I don't know what was going on that day. So there is some sort of connection between Christmas and the bikers. This is the one time of the year where they they're snorting and drinking and carousing, and they go out. And I will say, bikers are some of the most charitable people you're ever going to find. They go to all the charity biker events. They ride on all this stuff. So, I mean, I come to praise the bikers. I don't come to bury them. But these aren't the kind of bikers that this game has in it. But so when it comes to arcade or console motorcycle games, is there anything that you ever have enjoyed?
No, not a single one.
So you're like me. Like, I've never really been a fan.
I take that back. I think the Harley Davidson game was great.
On the Amiga?
No, on the arcade.
Oh, yeah, that was good. I like that one.
That was a real fun one.
There was a game I used to play on the PC. It was called Moto Racer, I believe. And I remember you could go out in the desert and stuff, go up down dunes. That was a pretty fun one because it was like a free roaming one. So I like that one.
Evil Knievel in the arcade was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah.
You go back and forth and then
the
jump
black and white? That was the black and white. It wasn't Evil Knievel. It wasn't called that.
It was, but it was just they unbranded it.
If you've got if you are listening to this or watching it or in the chat, you've got a favorite that we haven't mentioned or haven't thought of, jot it down in the chat and the notes down at the bottom under the video. I'd be interested to know because if I sat here and think of all the motorcycle games, I mean, I've played many on the Amiga as well, but none of them I thought were particularly moving to me. No. And even the all-time great ones didn't do much for me.
I'm not.
Did you ever ride the?
Oh yeah, super hang-on type bikes.
I'm making you ride the motorcycle motion for you on the radio,
or you're trying to get up, one or the other.
Oh, my back.
I'm not a huge fan of racing games unless the racing game has a gimmick. For example, like San Francisco Rush, I love it because all the hidden passages and
that's a great
routes,
game,
right?
Great game. Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Just driving a track, even like pole position, not a huge fan, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Listen, man, Quiner, you got me, sir. He got me. because there's one on the Specky that's outstanding. It's on other machines too. Death Chase. That is a great game. In fact, I think it's the very first game we ever played on this show. I think me and Bo played it, and it is a lot of fun. It's simple but fun. So yes, you got one right there. That one, not so much, Chad.
But so I'm not a huge fan of just lap based or point A to point B racing games in general. There are some I like. Like I like Forza, but I don't like pole position. I respect pole position, but I'm not a fan of pole position.
It's not a motorcycle game.
No, I'm talking racing games, Aaron. Try to keep up.
Sorry, it's hard.
So when you take that and then you remove the car element, now you're just on a bike.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a bike game like San Francisco Rush, where you've got alternate paths. Motorcycle games almost always are you're on a path, go driving. I'm sure they're out there, but they aren't coming into memory. And I don't find them interesting.
I just thought of another one that I love. Here's another one, Trials. Trials is a lot of fun.
That has nothing to do with racing, though.
It's motorcycle. It's motorcycle riding. That counts.
Okay.
You know what I'd like to see? Here's something. If you've got the Spectrum, you're at the house and you went to the program over the holidays. I want a motorcycle game that plays sort of like Jet Grind Radio. Like that's got an exploration motif in it. You can do a little exploring, but you're on a motorcycle, not the skates. That'd be fun. You're right. There hasn't been like a San Francisco Rush to Rock for motorcycles, and there should be. And if there is one, I don't know about it.
Yeah,
so
I think it. But so going into the game proper, this game already started at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because it's just not my type of game. But today we're going to talk a little bit about BIKERS on the ZX Spectrum Next.
Nice intro, the Brent. So we are playing BIKERS. This game's actually been out about a little over 4 years. It's released November 1st, 2020. So this was an early ZX Next game. In fact, it's up to version 1.03, so there have been few updates. And the version we played is the newest version of it. This was developed by an outfit called Cavern Games. Cavern Games only had two other. They're linked up on itch.io, and you could also go to their personal webpage. They've done a couple of games. They've done like a sort of like a puzzly type game called Tinju, and they did another game which I found interesting, Magnum Clean Shot. And Magnum Clean Shot is a gun game, in the vein of say. It's you're shooting guys as the screen slowly scrolls type shooting game.
Yeah, like a Operation Wolf.
Kind of interesting. Yeah. It reminded me of a Capone or something like that. I think the Cavern Games is pretty much a one-man crew, but he does have some additional guys helping him out. The credits on this, the concept, programming, graphics, and sound are credited to a fellow named Andy Laird. The music on this, and we're going to talk about the music in this, is by Richard Faulkner, and QA and testing credits go to Rob Hewer. And I love this inspiration, Yu Suzuki. At least he gave you a little credit on this. You can pick this up on itch.io if you look up Biker or look up Cavern Games. And you also have a store at Cavern. You can still get physical copies of this if you desire.
How much were the box copies?
The box copies of this were $19.95, £19, 95p, and the digital copy, which we ended up purchasing, was £8, 95p. That's roughly around $12 US for that one, and we'll get to that. We'll get to what we think about that here in a little while. The flavor text on this one: throttle wide open, needle on the red line. It's you against the top riders of the Grand Prix circuit as you race your motorcycle across 5 continents in a bid to be the first across the line. Race against the clock to reach the next stage whilst battling wheel to wheel with your opponents. Inspired by the classic arcade races of the 80s, BIKERS brings the excitement home to the ZX Spectrum Next in full color, high octane glory. Pretty good. That's pretty well written flavor text there, Brent.
Yeah.
So amongst the things on offer, according to BIKERS, console quality arcade gameplay, huge sprites, 5 challenging courses, customizable difficulty level, supports 1, 2, and 3 button gamepads / joysticks and keyboards, fully redefinable keys, specifically composed AY-3 soundtrack, dynamic sound effects, all on offer in Bikers. So let's just cut to the chase just to make it easy for everybody. Bikers is sort of a very, very tight homage to Super Hang On. If you played Super Hang On in the arcade, so of course this is ZX Next.
Yeah.
So uh, Super Hang On was a much ballyhooed game on the ZX, the original.
Sure, yeah.
I remember when me and Bo played it, and it didn't do it for me. But everyone else loved it, but I didn't think it was that great, just because I'm not a fan of that game.
Right.
And so this game, I will say, has much more in common. Well, it's got mostly more in common with the arcade and less in common with the ZX brethren in this case for a bunch of reasons we'll get to. But this game comes up with a nice logo. Then you've got a real nice splash screen that takes you to you can either start the game or you can go to the option screen. Let's talk about the option screen real quick because there's not a whole lot of
It won't
options.
take long.
There are 3 difficulties: easy, medium, and hard. You can switch between joysticks. This was interesting because amongst your options on the joysticks were the Atari CX. You can use that as a driving control. I think it's got a swivel on it, and there's a special setup for that. So that's a nice touch. It support, and if you've got if you're playing this with a Mega Drive pad, you can use the buttons to accelerate. If you're using just a standard stick, which was what we used, we played this one together this week. It's up for accelerate, back for decelerate, and left and right to move left and right. I will say they does have completely customizable keyboard controls, but you cannot customize the joystick, which I wish you could.
Yeah.
Because right out of the gate, one of the things I don't like is when I'm playing a game like this is to have to hold up to accelerate. That's a real pet peeve of mine. Now, when I played this on the Ngo and used my Mega Drive controller, you can hold the button for it. When we played this on the Mister and we used just a regular gamepad, that was not an option because it was not a Mega Drive pad. So I'm not going to hold the guy. I mean, the guy gives you some good options, but that's the personal preference of mine. I would like to have seen this to where you could actually hold a button on a regular Kimpston type stick and play. But there you go. But customizable keyboard, give you a pass on that. And this might be a game that it's funny, I didn't trust on the keyboard. It might be a game that would play better on the keyboard, frankly. When you start a game, first of all, just as this comes up, just to get you in here, you got a little tune, the splash screen, the options. Sure. What did you think about the preamble to the actual game?
Standard fare.
Right. Is there any options you'd like to have seen?
I mean, like you said, forcing up for acceleration on a standard controller is no good. As you might have noticed, you didn't mention anything about a button for gear change.
Right.
And the reason why is there is no gear change.
There's no gear change.
And I was kind of surprised by that.
I was too. A low high is what I would have expected. In fact, your buttons effectively don't do anything except for they work when you're using a standard gamepad. They just work the menus. They select and they start the game. Something else you can do in the option screen, the last thing, is turn the music on and off. This game does feature music and sound effects simultaneously. So you'll get that, which is always nice. So once you start the game, it's time to choose your stage. Your choices are, this is weird. This uses the exact same type map. It could be the same map that Super Hang On uses, just like a picture of the globe stretched out. Your choices are North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, or Oceania, depending on how your preferences down there. But poor old Africa doesn't get it. Nope. It just sets it. So now, one thing I would wonder is there, if I beat this game, is this going to, maybe there's a secret track in Africa? We don't know. And there's so little out there on this game that I have never seen anyone like do a playthrough where they beat the game and we weren't going to do. I can tell you that.
Right.
You know?
It is odd that Africa, I mean, is clearly on the map. It's unselectable. So either that was I have to assume that was either content that was never finished. Maybe they planned on having some kind of little add-on down the line. Maybe it is an unlockable at the end of the game, but I really doubt the unlockable at the end of the game point because it doesn't save anything you do.
If anyone has beat this game thoroughly, and you can confirm or deny the presence of some sort of additional track content, that'd be great to know. But I know it's normally it'd be something that would be billed on the box.
Built on the tin.
It's not. It's not built at all. I read over what it says it has, so that doesn't. But that's okay. So you still got 5. You still got all those tracks to start off on. Now, one thing you can do that I do like is that you can select any country's tracks to go on
right off the bat,
which is nice. And so once you pick that country, and again, this is a good thing. The country has a unique background and it's got a unique tune. Okay,
and of course the track's different.
And the track's different. And you'll go through these. I think it's 5 stages you go through on each course. Now, as you go through, there's a gauge at the top, sort of like in Super Hang On, but not quite as informative. That will give you the sort of where you're at on the course. So this game opens up. It's quite colorful.
Yeah.
And you are in that sort of well-known vision of the behind a biker who's on his bike, a speed racing type bike, and super fast. And you are on a road, and the road types vary depending on what country you're in. And you are given a countdown with lights, and then you go. You're by yourself. You start by yourself.
Yeah, you don't start in a grid. It's staggered.
This is the sort of dodge the other bikers.
Dodge the traffic.
So when this comes up, your thoughts? The scene it sets.
Well, for me, my first thought was, yep, this is Super Hang On.
Yeah, right.
And because it has the same sort of perspective.
Yeah.
I think Super Hang On, you're a little higher in the air.
You are. You absolutely are. I ran these side by side to check that. Yeah.
But the graphics are colorful.
Yeah.
The sprites are huge. The scaling is fine for this sort of game. When a biker is far off, he can be blocked by your biker in front.
Absolutely.
Which is a little off-putting as you play. But the graphics overall are pleasant. And the first impressions are, if you like Super Hang On, you're probably going to like this.
Yeah. So right away, this is something that happens on the Amiga all the time with these racing games. It drives me nuts. You've heard me talk about it. Is where they've angled the camera too low.
Yeah.
And this one, and if you play this even on the ZX Next, but certainly in the arcade or on the ZX, certainly in the arcade, I ran these side by side, and that is this game's worst sin is that the camera is just too low. And so, the good news, your sprite for your character is huge.
Yes.
And it's very impressive. There's no animation on the bike like we've seen in other games where it's like, it'll kick up some dust or whatever when it does certain moves. I mean, it looks clean, but I mean, that's a nitpick. It looks good. And the other characters are big.
Yeah.
The problem is he's so big and the angle is so low that as the bikers come towards you, you have trouble seeing them.
Sure.
So you've got to be real attentive to what you're doing. So as you would expect, since this is like Super Hang On, the game starts, you take off. What makes or breaks these games is the feeling of speed. All right, we've seen this a million times, and if you can't get the feeling of speed down, you're boned.
Yeah.
Right. This game, and I'm happy to say this, that nails the feeling of speed quite nicely.
I think it does as well as any other game of this stature.
Well, I mean, again, the ZX Next. This is, if you compare this to, looking at games, if you're going to compare this to the arcade, I mean, obviously the ZX Next doesn't have arcade hardware, so
Right.
you can't. So I looked at myself. I'm thinking to myself, what console or other computer sort of fits in the wheelhouse of the way this game looks? To me, this game sits somewhere nicely between the Master System and the Mega Drive. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah,
right.
We're now, and that's not, we're not saying the Next does that. We're saying this game does this because we have certainly played games on the Next that are Super Nintendo level quality.
Well, but this game is doing most of the games we've played, we've been quite lucky. But this is a more visually um, demanding style game than what a lot of stuff we played has been 2D stuff. Or I mean, this right here, this is a full 3D motorcycle racing game. And
well, no, it's 2D
well,
sprite
you know what I mean?
in a 3D perspective.
Okay, fine. But my point is, this is the aspirations for this sort of effect are different than a lot. I mean, we've just seen in the last week, and it's a shame this came out after we filmed the Atari ST show, but a new game that's been released called Faster for the ST just came out, and its claim to fame is it's fast. It looks fast and it looks real nice and arcadey. It's because up to this point, the ST hadn't been able to put that together.
Right.
Here it is, and so that tells you, and the ST is infinitely more powerful than the Next. It shows you that there's something you can hang your hat on here about being able to put this sort of level of speed together. And I will say, like I said, the tracks aren't always the same in terms of their visual, the makeup of the track. The roadways have different effects on them, so that's nice. We mentioned that as you drive, you're going to have that sort of effect in the background for the background scenery. Some scenes are in a jungle. Some the Europe's in a
cityscape.
Europe's got a cityscape.
Yeah.
I think it's Australia. It's got the desert, and South America's got the jungle, and in America's got like a mountainous thing. So they change the texture. They change the colors of the ground, that goes by. They change the background scene, and then there are mild changes to the scenery that goes by.
Oh yeah, no, there's a great change in the roadside objects.
What did you think of the roadside objects? Because I mean, we've seen like pole positions. If this is a gimmick, or Lotus, there's always billboards and whatnot. And what did you think about the various things you get in this? Are bushes and little tiny trees and rocks.
They're not well scaled to each other. You're passing. First of all, you're passing palm trees where there would never be palm trees in North America.
You don't think there's palm? I mean, what part of North America? I was going to mention this, but since you brought it up, so we're looking at North America right now, and there's there's like the Rockies or something in the background, and then in the and so and it's kind of looks like the desert. So and so this could be like
I think it's the Route 66 is that what's
that, so that runs through Oklahoma and all the way. So I mean, theoretically, they could be running through the desert. So this could be a scene there. I can see that. They
sure.
got palm trees in the desert.
Well, yeah, but the palm trees in the desert are probably over like 2 foot tall.
By the way, how much money do you think it cost our nation to put that many Route 66 signs up? This thing's got literally hundreds that you go by,
especially gold plated ones.
Yeah,
but the rocks are too big. The signs are too small. The trees are too small. And really, that's a sin across all the different maps. Is the roadside obstructions are weirdly scaled. I don't know why the trees are so small. I don't know why the rocks are so large. It's just
the rocks vary in size.
No, I mean these things are massive, and they look like gray lemons.
They do. But that's I will say that's true.
But so I'm not super impressed by the roadside obstructions. Not that you have to be impressed by the roadside obstructions to play the game.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the game itself. So this game's got an interesting scoring mechanic. Your bike, when it's maxed out at speed, it can go 320 miles per hour. Yes. That's fast, by the way. That's super fast. You don't start scoring 0.1 until I believe you're at 260 or 220. You got to, so you don't get any score so the longer you stay at high speed, the more points you score.
Yeah.
What do you think about that as a scoring? That's unusual. I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
I don't think it matters that much because
it says if you're keeping track of your scores.
No, I don't think it's that important. I mean, when you're playing the game, you're going to go max speed if you can. So, I mean, you're never going to drive at 260 miles an hour and not get score. It's just not how you play the game. First of all, you would never be able to hold your bike at that speed because there's no gear shifts. So you keep going until you can't go any faster.
Yeah, you max out the bike.
The scoring is completely irrelevant in my eyes. I mean, you can do better and get a higher score, but to me, this is not a point game.
This is a point game. That's all this is.
No.
Listen, ignore Brent. That's dumb. That's all this game has. It's points. That's it.
No,
and trying to get there, trying to get
you race the world. That's the whole point of the game.
It's not.
To see how far you can get.
It's points. The points game. I disagree. It is. Because
there's no way to get better points outside of ending the race faster.
There is. Yeah, there is, because you can complete. There are several different ways you can complete a course. You can limp along and barely make it, or you can go crazy the entire time. The faster you go, the longer you go fast, the more points you get.
Here's the thing. If you were to play this, right, and you made it through level 1, and your opponent made it through level 2, and I'm not talking about phases in the map, I'm talking about completing a complete continent. There is no way that the guy that only completed one race could win.
Oh, you could absolutely. I don't agree with you on that.
Impossible. Because I'm not
saying the guy that kept. No,
I'm not going to fight this with you because you're so wrong.
No, I think.
But your opinion is your own.
Hold on a second. We're missing. Do I think that the guy that completed one level could beat the guy that completed 2 levels? No, I don't think that. But when competing in one level, one person can absolutely have a better score.
Sure,
there's that.
I will agree with you.
We mentioned there's no high-low, and we mentioned the scenery. Now let's talk about the actual racing. When you're on the track, there are other bikers that are coming by, and depending on your difficulty level, will depend on how they act. If you play this on beginner, you'll see them in the distance, and they will just come straight back.
They stay in their lane.
If you play this on medium, they will sometimes move to another lane.
Yeah,
if you play this on hard, they're always moving. They're always moving around. It's funny to me because I found hard, in terms of the way the bikers played, that part didn't make it harder for me, because in some ways them moving out of their lanes not a bad thing.
Exactly, I agree,
because you can see them easier.
Medium is by far the hardest difficulty.
I mean, I will say I was successful in the lowest difficulty, beginner, and did not have much luck on higher. And so, I mean, I will say, I think the difficulties, I mean, there are difficulty differences.
Yes.
You will go, you've got a timer at the top that counts down, just like in Super Hang On, and you will go until you complete that section of the track. If you don't complete it, your game's over. If you do complete it, you'll get a time extension added onto your whatever time you've got left. And you will go. Now, the bar, unlike a Super Outrun, the bar isn't split up. And so you can't see exactly where you're at, which I wonder why they didn't do that.
There's no incremental increases to your bar.
That's right.
You don't know how close you are to another checkpoint. When you complete a checkpoint, it fills in that next section of bar.
Yeah. Something else that I noticed, and I went back to look at the regular ZX version of this Super Hang On as well to double check this. One thing that I will say about the original ZX version of Super Hang On was it had lots and lots of hills up and down, and you could see your guys coming over the top of a hill, and you can see yourself come to the cusp of a hill. This one, Brent thinks there might be subtle elevations, but I didn't see any elevations at all. It just looks like a flat track. Believe it or not, there's a little wiggle room here just because of how the visuals are. Because sometimes it can kind of trick the eye, and you think there might be a slight incline, but I never saw a single bit of incline anywhere.
There aren't hills like there are in Super Hang On.
No, okay? Not even close.
I'm not even going to try to argue that point. But the apex of your distance does dip down and go up. It's less like mountainous hills and more like very small elevational changes.
I think it's a trick of the eye when you're making turns. I don't see any sort of hills at all in this. I will say this: no matter which one of us is right, you're not going to see anything that would resemble the hills of like Super Hang On.
No,
it's not even
the
close.
fact that we're having this debate means it's not.
Yeah,
it's not there enough to.
Yeah, it's
quote as a feature.
It's practically nothing. Brent pointed out something I found amusing, which are several sections of the road where they have arrows to tell you which way to go on the curves, and they're both pointing towards the middle.
Yes.
So
and it's not a straightaway.
I assume it means stay on road. That's basically what it means. I was able to beat tracks on this
Yeah, as
right away, and I could do it on easy. Now I know one of the patches that the gentleman put out for the game was to actually make it slow down, or not slow down, but be easier. I guess so. People are
more time.
had complained, and so I don't know what this was like to play back in 2020. But I will say it's funny as these games go, and even with the flaws we pointed out, I did play this and I found myself enjoying it. And unlike what you said, I did find myself trying to compete with my own time or with my own score on certain tracks. I thought that was kind of fun. Something I did notice, this was a surprise when you came over to play, is that it didn't save my scores from the old games.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
don't
save anything.
Well, I mean, on a computer, that's kind of weird. I thought it would, but
Before we get to the sound, because I know
Okay.
we're both
Yeah.
itching to talk about the sound, I want to do a real quick thing.
Yeah.
This game is vanilla ice cream.
Okay.
Okay. It has no outstanding features. It has
Speed.
bare minimum across the board in every aspect. And we have to talk about the price. It's too high. This was $12 US.
Yeah.
Which is the same price as we were paying for some of the other games that we got on the next that are there's so much more game in the other games that we purchased that this was it was a sticker shock disappointment. Is this game fine? It's fine. If you want a motorcycle game to play on your next, it's fine. But when you attach a $12 price tag onto it, there are certain aspects that I expect. I expect gear shifting. I expect progressive level tracking. I expect 5 tracks is fine because there's 5 tracks and 5 segments for each track. So you can sort of lie to yourself and say there's 25 tracks, even though there's not.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's no type of character customization.
There's no like rally. I mean, like not a proper rally.
There's no true options outside of difficulty.
The funny thing is, you could have put that in a game like this. He had the backbone.
All of this could have been pushed to the next level, and a $12 US price tag would have been fine. As it is, and I will fully admit, this is not the type of game for me. But from a video game reviewer perspective, this is so bare bones, without any additional features, that it's hard for me to say, hey, go check out BIKERS for $12. I just can't. I can't do it.
I'm going to step in here for a minute and
Sure.
just say this. I agree with most of what you said. However, there are certain elements you have to take into account. For the most part, this was a one-man show.
Which is impressive.
And this came out very early, but this predates a lot of people getting there next.
Which is also impressive.
And so he probably he thought, okay, there's so few people. But I found out, by the way, there's about 5,100 of these things on the earth. I found that out. So, but back in 2020, it wasn't even anywhere near that many. I think in 2020, when the next was just coming out, you can say, I want the X amount of dollars to be good to go. But I would cut the price about half in 2024. And because one thing I know, me and Brent always look around for reviews and footage, see what we can find. And there's painfully little in this game.
Yeah.
How our Discord found out about it, I'll never know. The Clives Club, they knew about it, and more power to them. But I think one thing you've got to give some credit for, as a one-man team with a music guy, this is an impressive feat, I think. Oh, by the way, this is done, from what I read, this was done in like Next Basic. Did I mention that?
Yeah. No. And that's
so you got to give the guy a look. You're burying this guy.
No, I'm not burying the guy. I'm burying the price tag. I think the game is fine.
Yeah.
Right? I just don't think paying $12. If this was a $4 US or even a $5 US game,
That'd be no problem.
no problems at all.
And really, the hard copy, $20. No, that's 20 pounds. That'd be 25,
It'd be
24.
about $28.
That's not. No, it wouldn't be that much.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not counting shipping, which would be horrible. But my point is, that's not bad. I think that's fair.
If it comes with a good box, a
everything.
good manual, maybe some feelies.
You know, I would. Here's the thing: once these things have been out, and I think this happens a lot on itch.io.
People forget about them.
Stuff gets lost in the shuffle, and I think this game is a quality game if you're into this sort of game, and so you could charge. I think you could move a lot of units for $5 US.
Yeah.
You know, so if I just charge £5, what's that? $7 US. That's or $6.50. That's okay. I'd be okay with that.
You're pushing it for me.
You know, now I want to talk about the musical score of Richard Faulkner. This is funny. We don't normally say the music to last. This game, and I'm not going to sit here and say this game has bad music.
No.
But it's the most wacky soundtrack ever attached to a bike game.
If the hard copy came with a CD with the music on it, I might consider it.
Yeah, the music in this, and I'm going to have to look up some other Richard Faulkner's works. This music's bonkers. Particularly, I told Brent, I was like, listen, you got to play the European track. Because the European track, the music is full of sound effects that you would normally hear in game.
Yes.
I kept playing that game, and that level, and I'd hear like the sound that you pick something up, or like you'd insert a coin. I'd be like, "What is that?" That's part of the song. Like the different areas would have the strangest. I mean, you'd think it was an Asian tune, and it had weird drums. I mean, it was bonkers. This was the most bonkers soundtrack of the year,
and it's not
close.
And it did not fit with the theme of the game at all.
When you think about a racing game, you think like something to really get you going. This stuff be like it's like, what is that? But I mean, at first I hated it. Then I turned off the music, and then I had to have it back on. Because I'm like, no, I'm not playing this level if I don't get to hear that wacky tune.
Yes.
So I will say, Richard Faulkner, I don't know how your music has been received, but I enthusiastically endorse your insane musical.
2 huge thumbs up.
You've got musical abilities endowed to someone that was in an insane asylum. They'd be given an old Casio with a sampler. So,
if Satan ever rose from the ground and they're like, all right, who's going to challenge me on a music off?
Yeah.
I see this guy coming up with a big electronic keyboard. I'm going, let's go.
I need the most bonkers soundtrack I could ever heard. So like I said, now I will say you can turn it off.
Yeah.
But and the funny, I will say this. The funny thing about this, Andy Laird, his sound effects are, you would think, because even on the ZX, you'd hear pretty good sound effects. These sound effects were real video gamey.
Yeah.
I mean, they were real 8-bitty.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't sound like a proper motor. It sounds like the Atari. If some of this reminded me of Atari 2600 sound. Well, I mean, it's not the worst thing if that's what you're going for. But I mean, it didn't sound like, I thought they'd try to resemble like a motorcycle motor or something. No, they didn't even give that a shot.
Thankfully, that doesn't matter because the music is all your ears are gonna pick up on, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So we did get reviews of this, by the way. I was happy to see. So we put the clarion call out. Brent, we did get several reviews.
Yeah, let's
get into them. So
I hope everyone mentioned the music at least.
Well, I think there were some musical mentions. We're going to start out with Bajako, of course. Technically and visually, very impressive with giant sprites and great audio. It is very responsive and runs very smoothly, so everything should add up to make for a killer game. Sadly, however, the directly behind viewing angle and giant bike make it difficult to see in front of you, which can make some frustrating collisions with other racers and stop you seeing the track ahead. Coupled with some very keen sprite collision, which has you crashing by merely being close to roads and that's a valid point right there.
Yeah.
That happened to me on certain tracks. Because in the original, like in Super Hang-On, you've got a little leeway as you go off the track.
Yeah.
In this, in certain areas, you just I'd be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Anyway, Bajako continues. I found it an odd choice that there was no track for Africa, which is right in the middle of the track selection screen. And oddly, while you can figure it out, there is no gauge or track difficulty. With a lot of games, you learn to work with sprite collision problems, and once you memorize the tracks within reason, crashing at the side of the road should be avoidable. But something about this doesn't grab me. And I think it looks like a 16-bit game when it's really an 8-bit game with amazing graphics and sound. And so I'm probably expecting more in my head. Ultimately, I found the game a bit lacking in fun. So while Bikers is a great technical demo, it is for me a so-so game. Your mileage may vary. And honestly, given a choice between this and the Specky Super Hang On, or even on the Spectrum Next, I'd go Super Hang On the Specky.
Oh,
6 out of 10. Uh, Hermsky chimes in, couldn't agree more. The third person view does obstruct the view. If only this was played in the first person view, this would make it fairly realistic. That's an interesting idea. Jed Byrne chimed in. The graphical style of Bikers is so close to Super Hang On that I'm going to refer to the Spectrum conversion as the original and compare it to this next upgrade. The graphics are big, fast, and colorful. As a demo of what the next can do with scaling sprites, it is a great success. Sadly, when compared to the original, it feels a bit static. The flourishes of the original are missing. The wheel is not animated. There's no plumes of smoke. I mentioned that when your knees touch the road. The horizon graphics lack parallel scrolling or a gradiated sky. The images are clearly designed with multiple layers, like trees and mountains, but the layers do not move in parallax.
yeah.
The vast, featureless sky that fills most of the screen feels very flat. The original did not have layered parallax, but it does have clouds that move slowly in a granulated sky to try to create the impression of scale that Bikers lacks. The original would have dramatic moments where you ride over the crest of a hill. The road ahead would disappear for a moment and then fill the screen as you plunge downwards. In contrast, Bikers never leave the bottom of the screen. The horizon always feels close and you struggle to see past your giant bike. Another problem is there's no sense of progress. The bar only moves when checkpoints are passed, and the graphics within a continent never change. The checkpoint gates that felt so rewarding in the original are missing. That's true. You just
Yeah.
sort of hit a checkpoint. It is an impressive demo of the next potential, and I love the country soundtrack, but I'd rather play the original. Those are all valid points. I do want to mention that we didn't bring this up one time. So as you're scooting along in this game, if you hit another racer, you don't wreck.
No, you just go slow to zero.
Almost, not all the way to zero, but low. If you wreck, there are actually several different types of wrecks. It's sort of like you fall off. There's a kind of you really fall off, and then there's a calamity fall. So give them credit. It can be painfully slow to get as this thing puts you back on the track.
Yeah, your real punishment for wrecking is it recenters your bike and it does it really slow. Sometimes it can take up to like 7 game seconds.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, 2 of those and you'll never make it to the next checkpoint.
Well, that's not true. You can make it up. I'll watch you make it up, and when this happened to you a couple times, you can definitely do it. Of course, I didn't find any like magazine reviews or anything on this, so pretty much that's all we got to go on.
Yep.
Let me ask you now. I know you would like to see a discount, or granted, let's just say this thing's selling for $5 American.
Okay.
Does that change whether you recommend it or not?
Recommend it? No, I'm never going to recommend it.
Okay. No. I listen. I think this is a. You got to look at this stuff in the balance of how it was made and who did it, and you're talking about.
No, I think he did an awesome job.
You're talking about a one-man show here, not counting the incredible music and the play testing. I think you've got a quality item here. This is a quality game. You can sit down and play it. If Bikers 2 is on the horizon, I hope number 1 there's a horizon, and I hope number 2. The Bikers 2 I would like to see a game like this. I mean, he's got the bones of something. Yes. Like, let's have an actual race. Let's have points. Stuff. I'd love to. I mean, the thing is, this is one thing that bothers me about games like this. They've done all the work to make the game, and then there's the little things you can do with
it's all work, no polish.
Yeah, little extra stuff. But I mean, he did make. I've played Super Hang on everything. It's come up a lot on this show, on our various shows. And Super Hang On didn't have any of that stuff either. So if you're going to make it like Super Hang On, I think he's done a pretty darn good job.
Absolutely.
So that will be that on the look at Bikers. A fun game, just a little low. Uh, so let's talk about what we've got coming up, the Brent. Um, on the next episode of our Sinclair, this will be taking place after the New Year starts. We're going to be looking at a game from 2022, I believe, called Tiny Dungeons. It's another new game. I've never played this one. I think this is just
it also on the
no,
next?
it's a ZX, I think.
Sweet.
And so that'll be a good time.
Hey, if it's any that I have high hopes for it. I really do.
Next week, as we kick the rotation in one last time this year, we'll be doing the Coco Christmas show where we'll be looking at 2 games. Get yourself ready to go out and hit the powder. We'll be looking at skiing and Horace Goes Skiing.
Good old Horace.
Horace is he's a pivotal character that the people take a side on. So that should be a lot of fun next week on the retro rotation of the Coco show. I also want to mention that in just a couple weeks, right before New Year's, we'll be getting together with Boat to have our end of the year spectacular, where we combine all the shows on the channel in one big show, and we talk about sort of a year in review, some predictions, and some best and worst, that kind of stuff. It's always a good time. Get Boat in here.
Good time.
So it should be a good time, and we'll give you the date on that. I also want to mention that coming up January 18th, Amigathon 2025 will be kicking off. So more details to come. That should be a lot of fun. That's going 12 hours, I believe, 8 to 8 on that Saturday afternoon. So it should be a good time. I think that's all I got, Brent. You got any final holiday wishes for the people, for their families, for their pets, relatives?
Nope.
I do. Have a happy holiday, everybody. Thank you for all your support to me and the Brent. We appreciate it. And we hope you and your loved ones have a lovely holiday. If that's your cup of tea. If it's not, I hope you have a good time anyway. And we will catch you next time around. Merry Christmas, everybody. And until next time, nothing. He sucks. Good night, everybody.